Hello and welcome to Frontrunner Motorsport. And Formula One is literally just about to begin. We have qualifying later today, and then tomorrow it all starts again on a Saturday, which is a bit strange, but we'll deal with it. And as it is the new season, it's time to come up with some Formula One predictions. Usually these are hideously wrong, but I do feel like in 2024 it's going to be a little easier to predict. I'm not expecting massive changes from last year. I mean, the grid hasn't changed at all. And so I think I've got a pretty good idea of what's going to happen already. I'm pretty smart, you know. If you've been watching this channel for a while, you know that like there's big brains up here. So I'm going to run down the grid of, well, not the grid. These will be the final standings, basically, is what I'm trying to say. You want to put money on it? Don't. Never, ever. Don't do that. But we'll do this. I'm going to give you my predictions. I want you to give me your predictions in the comments, and we'll compare notes. And I'll tell you why you're wrong. So with that, make sure you subscribe to the channel, because I'm going to be reacting to these, God, sometime in December, I think. And we'll see how right or wrong I actually was. And you don't want to miss that, so definitely subscribe. And with that, let's jump into the video. Haas 10th, with Kevin Magnussen 20th and Nico Hülkenberg 19th. Now, obviously, there has been a big shake-up at Haas. Gunther Steiner is gone. They've hired from within to replace him. Some say this shows a lack of ambition, and Gene Haas is not willing to throw the money at the project, and maybe it's time they, shuffle out, let other teams come in. But I don't see it like that. I think this is going to be the start of a reboot, basically, for Haas. They're going to go back to basics, start again, and really this is just like a hangover year. So I'm not expecting very much from the team. They were struggling last year. I think they're going to struggle this year. Magnussen and Hülkenberg are both capable of putting in some good qualifying performances, and occasionally you'll see them in the higher end of the midfield in a race, but they can't do it throughout the season. I do think they'll both score points. I think everyone in the championship will score points this year, but I do think Haas are going to really struggle, especially as the year goes on. I think they're going to struggle in development, and they are going to fall sort of down the order, last, and both drivers last. I will point out that I only mean they'll finish 20th and 19th if there's no chopping and changing on the grid, but they'll be last of the drivers, essentially. Stake F1 9th, with Guan Yu Zhou 17th and Valtteri Bottas 14th. Again, like Haas, I think the next couple of years are going to be rough for Stake. I think the main thing for this team is just to exist until Audi get there. Audi will be running the team in 2026, and that's when we'll see big changes, possibly money thrown at it and more advancements. That will have a big difference. I think they'll probably have a different driver lineup then as well. As for the next couple of years, though, it's going to be rough, just hanging on. I don't think they're going to make any big advancements. It's a shame because Zhou and Bottas are both good drivers. I think Bottas could have done with leaving Formula One and moving on. I think he's going to miss his chance at a good place in the hypercar class and world endurance. Zhou, I hope he gets to stay in Formula One for a long time. I think he's a really good driver. I think he's shown flashes of exceptional talent, but he's just not had the car underneath him to consistently grind out results. Hopefully, maybe a bit of consistency and a bit of strong reliability might help the team score points, but this is definitely a holdover year for Stake. Williams 8th, with Logan Sargent 18th and Alexander Albon 15th. Williams are always a hard team to judge, because last year we saw Sargent only scored points at one race, and even then only because other cars were disqualified. But Alexander Albon put in some fantastic performances and actually scored decent points for the team. I think Williams will move ahead of some of their rivals, and I think Alexander Albon will once again be a major feature in the midfield. Logan Sargent, I do think he's better than Nicholas Latifi, but I can't see him being a major point scorer. He did impress at times last year, but there were other occasions where his performances were a little flat. And I imagine that's going to be the sort of level he's at again this year. Maybe scraping the odd points finish here and there. Hopefully he does well in America, but it's not going to be a super year for Sargent, and I don't know if he'll survive because there's a lot of good Williams Academy drivers like Zach O'Sullivan and Franco Colapinto. So it's do or die for Sargent. I think he needs to have a good year. I don't think he's going to quite manage it. But Alex Albon, I'm sure, will do well for the team. Alpine 7th, with Ocon 16th and Gasly 10th. Alpine are always a disappointment. They've never really taken that final step to being anywhere near the front of the field. And with Aston Martin and McLaren taking a big step forward last year, Alpine kind of been left behind on their own in the midfield. They were behind the top teams and ahead of the backmarker teams. This year, I think they're going to be sucked further back towards the tail end of the field. Esteban Ocon's going to have a horrible year, which I'm sure is not the first time I've predicted that, but in 2026, I think Ocon will be gone from Formula 1, and I think the next couple of years are going to be hard for him. Gasly, he's a good driver. I think he'll do well enough. He'll score some decent points. Maybe grab a shock podium somewhere. I think for Gasly this year could be an audition for a seat at Mercedes in 2025. We'll have to wait and see on that. But generally, I think we're going to see Gasly-like performances from Gasly and a tough year from Ocon. And I think Alpine are in a bad place right now, and they need to turn it around. Maybe they can start by deciding on a livery and sticking with it. RB 6th, with Ricciardo 13th and Tsunoda 12th. Yeah, I hate the name. RB, really? Is that just the biggest lack of imagination going, or what? Anything else would have been better. Call it Arsberger and I'd have more respect for you than RB. But I think they will make improvements this year. There's a big shake-up at the team. They are sort of following in Red Bull's footsteps a bit more than they have in the last few years, where they've tried to strike it alone and it's not really worked out. This is more Red Bull light. I think Ricciardo and Tsunoda will have average years. Better than last year. Tsunoda especially will score some points. But it'll be midfield. They'll jump Alpine. They'll finish 6th. Nothing special. Hate the name. Aston Martin 5th with Lance Stroll 11th and Fernando Alonso 8th. Aston Martin were superb at the start of last year. We all know that. Alonso especially put in some fantastic performances and took a handful of podiums. It didn't last. Over the course of the year they struggled. And I can't see Aston Martin really managing that level of performance again this year. I think in another couple of years they'll have another good go at it, but I think that opportunity to take a win has slipped them by, and it has slipped Alonso by. I think podiums, especially for Alonso, are definitely on the cards, but I don't think they're going to score as many points as they did in 2023, and I think Aston Martin are going to trail McLaren. Now, Alonso will still have a half-decent season, but he is going to drop to 8th. Lance Stroll just does not score enough points. He's going to be lower end of the midfield again, down in 11th. We'll see a couple of good performances, maybe finishing in the top 5 a couple of times, but it's going to be a typical Stroll season. Alonso will carry the team, but he just can't carry the team enough on his own, and it's going to be pretty mediocre for them in 2024. But they're ambitious, they're doing big things. Expect them to bounce back at some point. McLaren 4th with Oscar Piastri 9th and Lando Norris 7th. Again, I think McLaren are going to have a fairly mediocre year. They came on strong towards the tail end of last year and it made up for a horrible start to the season. Maybe more middling, consistent performances in 2024. Lando Norris will do very, very well again. And I think podiums again will be on the cards. Would love to see him take his first win, but I think McLaren aren't going to be quite in with the top teams. And I think it's going to be Lando Norris putting in some special performances. Although we did see Oscar Piastri put in some great performances as well. I wouldn't count him out, and I think they're going to score decent points over the course of the year. They'll beat Aston Martin. They won't be too far behind Mercedes. But McLaren will be the 4th best team this year. Mercedes 3rd with George Russell 6th and Lewis Hamilton 3rd. Don't see big things changing at Mercedes. They looked very quick in testing at Bahrain, but it's not a given. And with Lewis Hamilton leaving, you're going to have to wonder how that's going to affect the mentality of the team as a whole. Obviously, he's been there a long time. Big part of the development of the car. And maybe that's something that will show more next year. But I think Hamilton and Russell are on for a similar year to what they had last year. Maybe one of them can take a win. Obviously, we're still in that big winless run for Lewis Hamilton, and maybe that's the aim, is to stop that before he leaves, take one more win for Mercedes at least. But I don't really see them being in title contention. I think they'll fall behind Ferrari and Red Bull and not really catch them up, and I don't think Hamilton's going to be in title contention despite being in third. Obviously all eyes are on 2025 for Hamilton at Ferrari, but for now I think Mercedes will have a pretty average season for them, for their high standard. But I think third is decent enough for Lewis Hamilton to sort of leave them on a high note, even if it's not winning a championship. Ferrari second, with Carlos Sainz Jr. fifth, and Charles Leclerc second. Now, I do feel sorry for Carlos Sainz Jr. I think he's been a good driver for Ferrari. He's taken a couple of wins for the team, and he's really had the harder of the, he's had more bad luck than Leclerc has had. Leclerc's made more mistakes, Sainz has had more bad luck. To be kicked out just because they can sign Lewis Hamilton, very, very harsh, but it means he is kind of auditioning for his future. I think we'll see another win for Sainz, and he'll put in great performances and be a consistent point scorer for Ferrari. Push them above Mercedes for second in the Constructors. In the end, it's just kind of a sad end to his Ferrari tale. It's only lasted a few seasons, and who knows what he'll be doing next year. Charles Leclerc has something to prove this year. He has to prove to Ferrari he is better than Lewis Hamilton. He does not want Lewis Hamilton coming into Ferrari and taking over the first driver role and having to play second fiddle to the Brit. So Leclerc this year is going to be motivated to absolutely push it. I think he's going to iron out some of the mistakes. I think we're going to see some exceptional lap times. I think he's going to take more poles than Max Verstappen, and I think he is going to convert it into his most winning season ever. Maybe pose more of a threat to Red Bull as well, which would be nice to see. And Leclerc is a very, very good driver. I think he's going to give Lewis Hamilton a very hard time at Ferrari. I don't think it's going to be clear cut for Hamilton. Maybe Leclerc has a championship run in him at some point. I don't think it'll be this year, but I think we are going to see a big improvement from the Monegasque driver. Red Bull first, with Sergio Perez fourth and Max Verstappen first. Yeah, no big surprises here. Red Bull, I think, will still be on top. They just had too much of an advantage last year not to. 19 wins in 22 races for Verstappen was incredible, and I think he'll do something comparable, but nothing like that. Maybe 14, 15 wins. Easy championship. I think he will be relatively clear of Leclerc. I just think he'll be closer than last year. Perez, I think this is end of the line. I think this is the last time we'll see Perez in a Red Bull. I can honestly see them swapping him for Liam Lawson in the season if it goes really badly for Perez. But failing that, I think next year we will see someone else in the Red Bull car. Probably Liam Lawson, but maybe Ricciardo or Tsunoda. Who knows? But I do think Perez is going to have a rough year. He's going to fall behind a couple of his rivals because I think they've got a lot more to fight for. I think he'll get announced as being replaced at Red Bull sometime this year, and it's going to take the wind out of his sails, and he's just going to sort of drift around the sort of bottom half of the top 10. We'll see a lot of like 5th and 6th places from him. It's going to be tough to watch, and this might be Sergio Perez's goodbye. I think he'll take a win or two. I think he'll help Red Bull to the Constructors' title, but that'll be his last hurrah. And you know what? It's been a fantastic career for the Mexican. He shouldn't be sad at all. He's been a real superb driver over the years. We've seen some fantastic performances from him in Saubers and Force Indias. And even though when he's gone to the big teams like McLaren, it didn't work out. Red Bull, it's been tough, but he has taken wins for the team, and he's been part of their championship winning performances. He should be very, very proud. But I do think Max Verstappen will be champion. So there are my predictions for the 2024 Formula 1 season. Let me know what you think in the comments. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Am I completely wrong about something and you want to tell me why you think that? I will absolutely read it and listen and ignore you. You should definitely subscribe, because when I do my reaction video in December, you're going to want to see what I got right and what I got wrong. Compare your notes, see what you got right and wrong. It's always worth doing. So subscribe to the channel. There's loads of motorsport content coming out in the near future. Thank you very much for watching. You are a superb audience. Enjoy the Formula 1 tomorrow. Have a good one.